Welcome back to These Things Are Written on this Tuesday as we continue to look at Genesis. We are starting on Genesis 17. There's been 13 years that have passed since Ishmael had been born. 24 years since that first promise. And once again, God makes another covenant, another promise to Abraham. It's not a different one, it's the same promise, but yet he gives another reminder to him that he will keep his word. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to Abram and said to him, I am Lord Almighty, walk before me and be blameless, that I may make my covenant between me and you and may multiply you greatly. Then Abram fell on his face, and the Lord said to him, Behold, my covenant is with you, and you shall be the father of a multitude of nations. No longer shall your name be called Abram, but your name shall be called Abraham, for I have made you the father of a multitude of nations. And I will make you exceedingly fruitful, and I will make you into nations, and kings shall come from you. And I will establish my covenant between me and you and your offsprings after you throughout their generations for an everlasting covenant to be God to you and to your offsprings after you. And I will give to you and to your offsprings after you the land of your sojourning, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. This is now the fourth time that God has made a covenant, an agreement with Abraham. This time he changed his name from Abram, which means exalted father, to Abraham, father of many. The promise is that I will make into you a multitude of nations, and I will give to you all the land of Canaan. Again, promising him descendants, promising him a land. And it talks about Abraham now, what he should do. Really look at that in the first verse. Walk before me and be blameless. That blameless, that righteousness that we saw in chapter 15, that was credited to Abraham then, Abraham now, by righteousness, was believing in God, believing in that promise that God had for him. Let's move on to verse 9. And God said to Abraham, as for you, you shall keep my covenant, you and your offspring after you throughout their generations. This is my covenant, which you shall keep between me and you and your offspring after you. Every male among you shall be circumcised. You shall be circumcised in the flesh of your foreskins, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and you. He who is 8 days old among you shall be circumcised. So what is the part that Abram had in this covenant? Again, faith. And acting in faith through circumcision. Circumcision, it would be an ever-present reminder of the covenant. An ever-present reminder that God was with them, that God had made his promise to him. Now, the other significant thing about circumcision is that it is really foreshadowing baptism. When we look at Colossians 2, verses 11 and 12, and a little bit farther past that as well, it shows that God has circumcised our heart through baptism. That baptism now is that new, it replaces circumcision, so that we are renewed in our faith, or so that we are brought into God's family, I should say, through the act of baptism as a sign upon us. And we carry that sign upon us every day. Finally, let's go to verse 17, I believe it is. And God said to Abraham, As for Sarai, your wife, you shall not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name. I will bless her, and moreover, I will give you a son by her. I will bless her, and she shall become nations. Kings of people shall come from her. Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed, and said to himself, shall a child be born to a man who is 100 years old? Shall Sarah, who is 90 years old, bear a child? And Abraham said to God, oh, that Ishmael might live before you. And God said, no, but Sarah, your wife, shall bear you a son, and you shall call his name Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant for his offspring after him. You know, it's interesting, isn't it? As we look at this passage, Abram's name changed to Abraham, Sarai to Sarah. By the way, both of those words for Sarah means princess. And then God drops the big news that your wife, Sarah, will give birth to a son, to a child, that son who would be the father of many nations coming after Abraham. And Abraham, when he heard it, laughed, which is where the name Isaac is derived, meaning he laughed, reminding again Abraham through the name of how he laughed when he heard it. This great thing, this great miracle that God would cause to happen. We'll come back tomorrow as we hit chapter 18. There's a couple questions. It's really a chapter with two different stories, wrapping up one and then, in a way, beginning the next. We'll get back to that tomorrow. Hope to see you then. God bless.